Hello, welcome to Skull RPG Podcast. My name is Dwight Skull.
My name's Jacob Skull.
And today we're going to teach you how to tell
Tell your
your story.
story. So, Dwight, I remember on one of the gaming sessions that you hosted a while ago, you had a concept where we were trying to seal a plague demon. And that's not what I'm trying to get to here, but you had standard Greek monsters that you did like a poison or a corrupted twist with.
Yeah. So let's talk about why you would do something like that. So one thing that I like to do is I like to take standard monsters out of the DMG or any other source I can find, even Greek mythology, and I will create them and then put a huge twist on them. So if you think you think you know what you're encountering, but you really don't. So in this case, if you think about a Greek siren, just in case you don't know, was a mythological creature back in like the Odyssey and the Iliad, and it was women, kind of, that would call out to sailors and mesmerize them so that they would
With
jump
someone,
off
so
the
that they
boat.
would come and swim and then they would devour them.
Yeah, they'd be drowned and eaten.
Yep.
And so they were kind of women from the waist up, but they were monsters in truth. So, regardless, what I decided to do was I thought, what's the most horrific kind of concept I could do that would cause normal people, even in or out of game, to go investigate? And so what I did is I had the players sleeping, or you guys were almost ready to sleep, I can't remember. And I basically had them roll some like listen checks, and I told them that they heard the sounds of children like screaming in terror.
Like blood curdling murder, like they're getting like flayed alive scream, like we
Right.
need to save them scream.
Right, and unless you're a heartless monster, you grab your gear and you go outside. Well, what it was is there were these huge monsters who their siren's call was making it sound as if they were a child screaming in terror, which would cause somebody to run to them in a panic, not prepare, and then they can get the jump on you. And it's an incredibly devious concept. So I basically just kind of took the stats for a monster like a harpy, changed it up just a little bit to make them kind of less like fly attack monsters, but more like more beefier, basically.
More charming, because once we got to a certain point, we were just more mesmerized by them and we didn't fight them. It was.
Yeah, that's the other thing too is they had will saves that you had to fight too. So, point is, I just grabbed a current monster, changed some of their stats, and then I thought about the most kind of twisted thing I could think of, which was, well, let's not have them call out lovingly. Let's do this fear emotion, right? Instead. And it caused them to go exactly do what they were supposed to do, which was run out and try to find out what's going on. When they found out what was going on, then they all had to make a will save because they were enamored. It was like a
Yep.
glamour charm spell on them.
And this is also another example right here in our gaming session where he had to improvise because all of us failed our will save. So we had another helpful NPC that gave us wax to put in our ears so we could actually fight the monsters now.
Yeah, I was hoping all of you wouldn't fail because that means you all get because the concept was they would keep singing to you until you walked to them, and just like in a regular siren, they would basically break your neck, and they get a full sneak attack and flat-footed advantage against you because you're willingly going to the
them.
slaughter. So I was like, oh crap, all of them died. So I had to or would have. So I had to quickly. So I didn't want to do a total party kill then. So I quickly did a helpful NPC knows what's going on. Here's the old fighter who took an arrow to the knee that's seen these before.
He was an old gruff sailor that saw the water ones, not the land ones.
And knew what to do. So anyway, that's an example of that. Now another quick example on how you could do this is you could create an environment, even an entire world, for instance, where the entire world mechanic is set against you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're going to cover kind of a Ravenloft-esque game, but in Ravenloft, just so you're aware, the entire planet was kind of corrupt, and everybody was moving toward evil. Like, every week you'd have to make a save, or slowly start devolving into evil. And so you could do a world where maybe your players are transported there without their consent, and the world itself is poison to them. And so the very air they're breathing is slowly making them succumb unless they can pass certain fortitude saves or imbibe certain sort of medicine. And so obviously you kind of at that point setting up a timer in the world that just says you only have maybe 3 months in this place before you might die because you're not
Mm-hmm.
suited to it, which is a lot nicer than if I were to teleport you to the elemental plane of fire, where or the negative energy plane, where you start taking every round you're starting to take damage. What I'm talking about is a slow burn, like maybe they go to another world and the plants in the air are causing a toxic mist. The inhabitants that normally live there are immune to it, but you're not.
And it's over a couple months of the toxin builds up in your system and you start to slowly have an effect, but you might not know that until you start to see symptoms.
Right. Or every week the DM could just be like, okay, everybody make me a roll. And then you don't know why. And then the next thing you know, the DM turns to you and says, "Oh, you rolled a 4 on that? Okay. You're down 1 strength now." And you're like, "What? What's going on?" And it's like, "Well, you just feel weaker."
Mm-hmm.
And then, you kind of go, "Why am I still down 1 strength?" It's like, "Well, make a heal check." And at that point you could start noticing things in the air and like, "Oh, wait a minute. We're
Mm-hmm.
actually on a counter. This is so devious." So I like to do things where I'll either change the world and make it against you, or more than likely what I'll do is I'll take a current monster and I'll just change it instead of like, so a siren uses love to coerce you. I decided to use fear.
Fear.
So that's another thing you can do is just change it on its head.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a monster that you know that uses love or a glamour in such a way to make it appear more and better? Well, what would the antithesis of that be? Is there another monster that it protects itself because it makes itself look worse than it is, like a cat who gets bigger, just to intimidate its foes?
Real quick, an example I was thinking of with that concept. Succubus uses love and seduction to lure you in. What if you have something that's so ugly that you're just transfixed and you have to look at it?
Yeah,
And
like
you're drawn in because of what is it instead of
right. Yeah. I mean, you can do the same thing. So, like a Medusa turns you to stone, like a basilisk turns you to
mm-hmm.
stone. Is there some like thing you can think of where maybe it's a different sort of thing? Like instead of turning you into stone, maybe the basilisk casts a different spell on you instead. So you can kind of play with that. Another piece, just to throw in a book series that's really good. If you looked at Jim Butcher's his detective noir series,
Dresden?
the Dresden Files. Thank you. If you look at the Dresden Files, his concept of vampires, he has like 3 different types of vampires, and some vampires suck blood, some vampires
Suck
suck
emotion
emotions.
and things like that.
So could you turn the D&D vampire on its head, and instead of it sucking down your health points, it's sucking down your charisma,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because energy drain is energy drain, right? So, and if you go to 0 charisma, what happens? Right? I can't remember exact rules, but nothing good. You
Definitely
know,
not for like strength and dex for some characters.
if you did a strength and a deck, well, if you get 0 strength, you die. You go comatose. If you go 0 dex, you're a tree. You can't move,
Mm-hmm.
which makes you really easy to kill.
0 intelligence for any creature, you can't do anything.
Yeah,
You're mindless. You know
yep.
how to eat, sleep, and
Again, easy to kill because you're now flat-footed at all times.
and you can't use your weapons.
Can't defend yourself. So, is there a is this world concept maybe the longer you stay, the more intelligence points you lose because the very air is making you stupid because it's a poison?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't affect anybody else because again, you got moved there, you got transported there.
Everything evolved with this in
Or
place.
or maybe you have this really nasty castle of a mad wizard, and to make sure that other mad wizards couldn't come and take him out, other wizards couldn't come and take him out, he decided to have a intelligence drain on the entire place that only affected everybody but him.
So anybody who's looting his castle has that issue.
Well, or eventually you're trying to kill him, right? He thinks he did this when he was alive as a permanency spell.
Mm-hmm.
It's been centuries now. He's dead. But when he was alive, people would come to try to kill him. By the time they finally got down to that lower level, they had an intelligence score of like 4 or 6, and they can't cast any spells.
Yep.
And now he can just do what he wants with them. So there's just different ways to play with this concept. So that's really it. So think about ways that you could really just turn things that are normal on their head. And it really is kind of a nice thing because then if all your players already know every the monsters in the monster manual, now they don't.
Or even if they don't, it's just this interesting take that they've never thought of before.
Exactly.
Because you're flipping the script on what you normally think of with monsters.
Exactly.
Or ideas.
Yep. Flip the script.
Hey, thanks for listening.
And for more resources, please go to skullrpg.com.